The signal came from deep space at 3 in the morning. Lieutenant Commander Jake Murphy was drinking his 5th cup of coffee when the communication array started screaming warnings. The sound made him jump and spill hot coffee on his uniform. "What the hell is that noise?" Jake asked the night shift operator. "Unknown transmission, sir. It's coming from the Zephyr system. That's about 40 light years from here," said Petty Officer Linda Harris. Her fingers dancing over the control panel. Jake wiped coffee from his shirt and walked over to Linda's station. The outer colony's communication array was usually quiet. During night shifts, most signals they received were routine cargo manifests or family messages between colonies. This was different. "Can you clean up the signal?" Jake asked. "Working on it, sir. There's a lot of interference. Whatever is sending this is using a lot of power." Linda's face was lit by the blue glow of her screens. "Got it. Audio and visual. Coming through now." The main screen flickered to life. Jake saw a creature unlike anything he had ever seen before. It looked like a cross between a dolphin and an octopus, with smooth blue-gray skin and large black eyes. The creature was clearly in distress. "My name is Cathara," the alien said in broken English. "I am speaking for the Zephyrian people. We need help. Please, if anyone can hear this message, we are dying." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. First contact with an alien species, and they were asking for help. He grabbed the emergency phone and called Admiral Lisa Carter's office. "Admiral, we have a situation. You need to get down here right now." 20 minutes later, Admiral Carter arrived with her aide and the base's xenobiology expert, Dr. Sam Peterson. Carter was a tall woman, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Dr. Peterson was younger, with messy brown hair and thick glasses. "Play it from the beginning," Carter ordered. The message played again. Cathara explained that his people lived on a water world called Zephyr Prime. They were peaceful and had never hurt anyone. For the past month, ships from something called the Hegemony had been attacking their world. "They burn our cities from space," Cathara said, his voice breaking. "They hunt our escape pods like animals. We have tried to surrender, but they do not want prisoners. They want us all dead." Dr. Peterson leaned forward. "Admiral, this creature is showing genuine emotional distress. The physiological signs are clear. This isn't fake. How many of you are left?" Carter asked, even though she knew the alien couldn't hear her. As if answering her question, Cathara continued. "We were once 12 billion souls. Now perhaps a few thousand hide in our deepest cities beneath the ocean. The surface is fire and death." The transmission showed images from Zephyr Prime. Jake had to look away. Massive cities were burning. Bodies floated in the water. Ships in orbit fired beams of energy that turned entire islands into glass. "The Hegemony broadcasts our destruction across their territory," Cathara said. "They enjoy watching us die. It is entertainment for them." Admiral Carter's face was stone, but Jake could see the anger in her eyes. "Dr. Peterson, what do we know about this Hegemony?" "Nothing, Admiral. This is the first we've heard of them. But based on what we're seeing, they appear to be a militaristic society that practices genocide for sport." The message continued. Cathara explained that the Hegemony was made up of 3 different alien species who called themselves predators. They had been moving through this part of the galaxy for years, wiping out entire civilizations. "We intercepted some of their communications," Cathara said. "They have plans for other worlds. One of them is listed as Earth. They want to preserve your people as a hunting preserve. They plan to breed you like livestock for their entertainment." Jake felt sick. These aliens weren't just killing the Zephyrians. They had plans for humanity. 2. "If anyone receives this message, please remember us," Cathara continued. "Remember that the Zephyrian people existed. We loved beauty and knowledge. We never hurt anyone. We just wanted to live in peace. The transmission was getting weaker. Explosions could be heard in the background. I am transmitting our coordinates and all the information we have about the hegemony. Perhaps someone stronger than us can stop them. Perhaps someone can save the few of us who remain hiding in the deep places. Admiral Carter turned to Jake. Get me a secure line to President Davis, right now. Yes, ma'am. As Jake worked to establish the connection, the transmission from Zephyr Prime continued. Cathara was crying now, tears rolling down his smooth face. My daughter Lynn Thara is hiding with the survivors in Deep City 7. She is a scientist like me. She believes in the goodness of the universe. I hope she is wrong about that. I hope there are people out there who can do what we cannot. I hope there are people who can fight. The screen suddenly filled with blinding light. When it cleared, there was only static. A transmission source just went dark, Linda reported. Whatever was sending that signal is gone. Dr. Peterson was studying the data they had received. Admiral, they've sent us star charts, tactical information about hegemony ships, and detailed scans of their weapon systems. This is intelligence gold, Carter nodded. How long would it take to reach their system? With our fastest ships. 3 weeks, Jake answered. And how long before the hegemony finishes their genocide? Dr. Peterson checked the timestamps on the transmissions. Based on the pattern of attacks, maybe a few days. A week at most. Admiral Carter was quiet for a long moment. She stared at the static-filled screen where Catharay's face had been. Ma'am? Jake asked. What are your orders? We're going to save them, Carter said. And then we're going to make sure the hegemony regrets ever hearing the word Earth. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. He had served under Admiral Carter for 5 years. He had never heard that tone in her voice before. It promised terrible things for humanity's enemies. Get me Fleet Admiral Foster on the secure line, Carter ordered. Tell him we have a code-red first contact situation. And wake up Captain Ryan Hayes. His ship is the fastest thing we have. As the night shift scrambled to follow orders, Jake couldn't stop thinking about Cathara's words. The Zephyrian had hoped there were people out there who could fight. He was about to find out just how well humans could fight when someone threatened the innocent. The message from the dying. Zephyrian had reached the wrong species if the hegemony wanted an easy victory. They had just woken up the descendants of Earth, and humans did not let genocide go unanswered. President Helen Davis stared at the holographic display showing the burning cities of Zephyr Prime. The emergency session of the United Earth Council had been going for 3 hours. Representatives from every major colony were present there. Faces grim. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, said Senator Robert Kim from Mars Colony. These hegemony aliens are committing genocide for entertainment, and they have plans to do the same thing to Earth. Admiral Carter stood at attention beside the display. That is correct, Senator. The intelligence we received from the Zephyrians confirms it. Earth is designated as a future hunting preserve in their databases. How many ships do they have? Asked Representative Maria Santos from Europa Station. Current estimates put the Zephyr attack fleet at around 200 vessels. But that's just one task force. Their total fleet strength is unknown. Fleet Admiral Greg Foster stepped forward. He was an older man with scars on his face from the Titan Rebellion 20 years ago. Madam President, I recommend we authorize Operation Deep Current immediately. We can have a rescue fleet ready to depart in 48 hours. President Davis nodded. The rescue mission is approved. But Admiral Foster, I want contingency plans prepared. If these aliens think humans are easy prey, they're about to learn otherwise. Already working on it, ma'am, Foster said with a cold smile. 2 days later, Captain Ryan Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery as his ship prepared for the fastest hyperspace jump in human history. His crew was small but experienced. Chief Engineer Danny Brooks had worked miracles with the ship's engines. Tactical Officer Kelly Martinez knew every weapon system by heart. Dr. Sam Peterson had volunteered to come along as their alien expert. "All stations report ready for jump," announced Lieutenant Tony Kim from the navigation station. "Take us out, Lieutenant," Hayes ordered. The Discovery vanished into hyperspace, followed by the rescue fleet. UES Valkyrie, under Captain Jake Murphy, led the combat ships. UES Thunderbolt, with Captain Amy Stevens, brought the heavy weapons. 12 escort frigates completed the Force Dot. It wasn't much compared to the Hegemony fleet, but it was what they had. During the 3-week journey, Dr. Peterson spent his time studying the Hegemony data the Zephyrians had sent. What he found made him sick to his stomach. "Captain, you need to see this," Peterson said, calling Hayes to his lab. The doctor had been working without sleep for days. His eyes were red, and his hands shook as he pulled up files on his computer. "The Hegemony has wiped out 17 different species in the last 10 years, Peterson said. "They record everything. They broadcast the final moments of dying civilizations across their territory like television shows." Hayes felt his jaw clench. How do they choose their targets? Peaceful species with advanced technology, but weak military forces. They prefer victims who can't fight back effectively. Peterson showed him a list of destroyed worlds. "Look at this pattern." They study each species for months before attacking. They learn about their culture, their families, their children. Then they use that knowledge to cause maximum psychological trauma. What about their own people? Do they have families? Yes, and that's what makes this worse. They have civilians, children, art, music. They're not mindless monsters. They choose to do this. Peterson's voice was bitter. They could live in peace, but they prefer genocide. Hayes studied the tactical data. The Hegemony ships were bigger than human vessels and had stronger energy weapons, but they seemed to rely on overwhelming firepower rather than tactics. They've never fought anyone who fought back effectively, Hayes realized. Every species they've attacked has been pacifist. Exactly. The Zephyrians literally cannot organize military resistance. It's against their nature. Same with most of the other species on this list. 3 weeks after leaving Earth, the rescue fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr system. What they saw was worse than the transmissions had shown. Zephyr Prime was a beautiful blue world covered mostly by oceans. But now its atmosphere glowed with fires. Debris clouds marked where space stations used to orbit. Hegemony ships moved in formation above the planet like vultures. "Jesus Christ," whispered Kelly Martinez from her tactical station. Captain Murphy's voice came over the comm from the Valkyrie. "Discovery, are you seeing this? Copy that, Valkyrie. Beginning scan for survivors." Dr. Peterson worked frantically. At his sensors, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the deep ocean. The survivors are still down there, but barely." Hayes opened a channel to the rescue fleet. "All ships, this is Discovery. We're going in. Remember, our mission is to save as many Zephyrians as possible. Secondary objective is gathering intelligence on Hegemony capabilities." "Understood, Discovery," Captain Stevens replied from the Thunderbolt. "My weapons are hot and ready." The human ships moved toward the planet. Almost immediately, Hegemony vessels began turning to intercept them. Hayes had fought pirates and rebels before, but this was different. The Hegemony ships were beautiful in a deadly way, with smooth curves and gleaming hulls. They looked like works of art designed to kill. "Incoming transmission," announced Communications Officer Dave Park. The main screen showed a reptilian creature with golden scales and predator's eyes. When it spoke, its voice was full of amusement. "Unknown vessels, you have entered a Hegemony. Cleansing operation. Retreat immediately, or be destroyed. Hayes looked at the creature on the screen. This is Captain Ryan Hayes of the United Earthship Discovery. We're here to evacuate survivors. Stand aside. The alien laughed. It was a cold sound that made Hayes' skin crawl. Earth, yes, we know of your world. You are early for your appointment with us, but perhaps we can begin your education today. The transmission cut out. Multiple contacts moving to intercept, Kelly reported. Looks like 30 ships heading our way. Hayes activated the general comm. All ships weapons free. Show them what humans do to genocidal maniacs. The first battle between humans and the hegemony began badly for the aliens. They had expected the primitive kinetic weapons and small ship sizes to make this easy. They were wrong. The U's Thunderbolt took a direct hit from a plasma cannon that should have vaporized it. Instead, the ship's experimental armor held, and Captain Stevens returned fire with railguns that punched through. Hegemony's shields like paper. Captain Murphy's Valkyrie danced between enemy ships, its smaller size making it hard to target. Human. Pilots had trained for combat since childhood through video games and simulations. They flew like their ships were extensions of their bodies, but the humans were still outnumbered 6-1. Discovery, we've got problems, Captain Stevens reported. More enemy ships coming in from the outer system. Looks like their entire fleet. Hayes made a decision that would change everything. All ships continue the rescue operation. I'm going down to the planet's surface to establish contact with survivors. Captain, that's suicide, Kelly protested. Maybe, but those people down, they are counting on us. Hayes looked at his crew. Danny, can you get us through their orbital blockade? Chief Engineer Brooks grinned. Hold on to something, sir. This is going to get bumpy. The Discovery dove toward the planet's surface while the rescue fleet fought desperately above. Hayes knew they couldn't win this battle, but maybe they could save some lives and learn enough about the enemy to help Earth prepare for what was coming. As plasma fire lit up the space around them, Hayes couldn't help but think about the hegemony commander's words. They thought this was the beginning of humanity's education. They had no idea that they were about to learn what happened when you threatened a species that had turned warfare into an art form. The Discovery shook violently as it punched through Zephyr Prime's atmosphere. Plasma fire from hegemony ships lit up the sky around them like deadly fireworks. Chief Engineer Danny Brooks fought to keep the engines running while the ship's hull groaned under stress. Hull temperature is critical, Brooks called out. We're pushing way past safety limits. Captain Hayes gripped his command chair as another blast wave hit them. Just get us to the surface, Danny. These people are counting on us. Dr. Peterson was hunched over his sensors, trying to track the Zephyrian survivors. I'm getting signals from an underwater city about 200 kilometers from here. Deep City 7, just like Cathara mentioned. Can we reach them? Hayes asked. The city is 3 miles underwater. We'll need atmospheric processors to create breathing spaces for the survivors. Hayes activated his comm to the fleet above. Valkyrie, Thunderbolt, what's your status? Captain Murphy's voice came through static. We're holding them off, but barely. These hegemony ships hit hard. How long do you need? Give me 2 hours. You've got it. The Discovery landed on a floating platform that had somehow survived the orbital bombardment. The ocean around them was littered with debris and bodies. Hayes had seen war before, but this level of systematic destruction was something new. Away. Team, suit up, Hayes ordered. Kelly, you're with me. Peterson, bring your translation equipment. Danny, keep the ship ready for immediate takeoff. They descended into the dark ocean using the ship's diving equipment. The water was warm and filled with strange glowing creatures that had probably never seen sunlight. As they went deeper, Hayes began to see the remains of Zephyrian civilization. massive. Structures rose from the ocean floor like underwater mountains. They were beautiful, made of some kind of living coral. It grew in perfect geometric patterns. But many of them were broken now, their lights dim or dark completely. "Contact," Peterson said suddenly. "Something big is moving toward us." A creature emerged from the shadows. It was similar to Cathara, but much larger, with scars across its body and fear in its large black eyes. When it spoke, Peterson's translator worked perfectly. "You are not hegemony," the creature said. "What are you?" "We're humans," Hayes replied. "We received Cathara's message. We're here to help." The creature's body language changed. Hope replaced fear in its movements. "I am Linthara, daughter of Cathara, my father. He died when they destroyed the communication station." "I'm sorry for your loss," Hayes said. "How many survivors are with you?" "Perhaps 3,000 in this city. Maybe twice that in other deep settlements. We are all that remains of 12 billion souls." Hayes felt rage building in his chest. 12 billion people reduced to a few thousand, and all for entertainment. "We have ships above. We can evacuate your people to safety." Linthara led them deeper into the city. Hayes was amazed by what he saw. The Zephyrians had built a beautiful civilization under the ocean. Gardens of coral grew food. Children played in schools that looked like living caves. Art covered every surface. "Your people are remarkable," Hayes told Linthara. "We were a peaceful species," she replied sadly. "We had no weapons, no military. We thought all intelligent life would be. Like us, we were wrong." As they organized the evacuation, Hayes learned more about the hegemony. Linthara showed him intercepted communications and battle footage. "They are 3 species working together," she explained. "The Vreks are reptilian and serve as military commanders. The Korth are insectoid and handle logistics. The Xanthar, mammalian, and run their entertainment systems." "Entertainment systems?" "They broadcast our destruction across their territory. Families gather to watch entire species die. Children learn about conquest by watching recorded genocides." Hayes had to control his voice. "Do they have weaknesses?" "They are overconfident. They have never fought an enemy that could match their firepower. Every species they have attacked was peaceful like us." Suddenly, alarms echoed through the city. Linthara's translator made frantic clicking sounds. "What's happening?" Hayes asked. "Hegemony diving ships. They found us." Through the city's transparent walls, Hayes could see lights moving in the darkness. Sleek predator ships designed for underwater combat were approaching fast. "Get your people to the evacuation point," Hayes ordered. "Kelly, contact the Discovery. We need immediate pickup." But it was too late. The hegemony ships surrounded the city and began firing. Their weapons turned the water itself into a weapon, creating pressure waves that shattered buildings. Hayes and his team fought their way through collapsing structures toward the evacuation point. Zephyrian families ran in terror as their last safe place was destroyed around them. "This way," Linthara called. Leading them through a service tunnel dot, they reached the evacuation platform just as Discovery's shuttles arrived. The sight that greeted Hayes made his blood run cold. Hegemony soldiers were already on the platform, hunting down Zephyrian civilians. The aliens wore powered armor and carried energy weapons that killed with surgical precision. But they weren't just killing quickly. They were taking their time, savoring the fear of their victims. "Open fire," Hayes ordered. Human weapons weren't as advanced as hegemony technology, but they were effective. Hayes and Kelly used explosive rounds that shattered alien armor. The hegemony soldiers seemed surprised that anyone would fight back. The battle was brief but brutal. Hayes managed to save about 200 Zephyrians before more enemy forces arrived. As the shuttles lifted off, He saw hegemony ships rising from the deep to follow them. "Discovery, we need cover fire," Hayes called. "Already on it," Danny Brooks replied. The ship's weapons lit up the ocean surface as the shuttles raced toward safety. But more hegemony vessels were converging on their position. Hayes was almost to the Discovery when a plasma blast hit his shuttle. The small craft spun out of control and crashed into the ocean dot. When Hayes woke up, he was in a hegemony prison cell. His head throbbed and his arm was clearly broken. Across from him sat a reptilian alien with golden scales and cold, intelligent eyes. "I am Warcast Commander Vextar," the alien said. "You are the first human I have met. I am curious about your species." Hayes said nothing. "You came here to rescue strangers. This makes no sense to me. What do you gain from saving the Zephyrians?" "They needed help," Hayes replied simply. Vextar leaned forward. "Help? You risk your lives for creatures you had never seen before. Your species must be very foolish. Or very different from yours." The interrogation continued for hours. Vextar seemed genuinely puzzled by human behavior. He could understand predators taking territory or prey running from danger. But he couldn't comprehend the idea of one species helping another without personal gain. "Tell me about your world," Vextar demanded. Hayes looked at his captor and made a decision. "Earth is a dangerous place. We call it a death world. Everything there is trying to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. Yet, your species survived. We did more than survive. We learned to work together. We learned that cooperation makes us stronger than any individual predator." Vextar's scales rippled with what Hayes guessed was amusement. "Cooperation? We have cooperation. 3 species working together to cleanse the galaxy of weakness. That's not cooperation. That's just shared cruelty. And what would you call it when humans work together?" Hayes met the alien's eyes. "Family. We make every intelligent species part of our family. And we protect our family." For the first time, Vextar looked uncertain. "Protect them how?" "However we have to." The Warcast commander left the cell. Hours later, he returned with guards and recording equipment. They dragged Hayes to a larger room with cameras. "Your rescue fleet is trapped in our system," Vextar announced. "Your Captain Murphy and Captain Stevens will watch you die. Then they will return to Earth and tell your people what happens to those who interfere with the hegemony." Hayes looked into the camera. He knew his friends were watching. He knew his message would reach Earth. "Jake, Amy, get our people home safe. Tell Admiral Carter that the Zephyrians were right. These aliens have plans for Earth." Hayes paused. "And tell her that humans don't forgive genocide." Vextar activated a pain device. Hayes screamed, but continued speaking. "Earth needs to know what we're dealing with. They're not just killers. They enjoy it. They make art out of suffering." Another wave of pain hit him. "But they've never fought a species that fights back with everything we have." The torture continued for an hour before Vextar finally killed him. As Hayes died, he smiled. The Warcast. Commander thought he had won a victory. He had no idea that he had just declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The transmission reached Earth exactly 18 hours after Captain Hayes died. President Davis watched the torture and execution in her private office, her face growing harder with each passing minute. Fleet Admiral Foster stood beside her. His scarred hands clenched into fists. How many people saw this? Davis asked quietly. The hegemony broadcasted across their territory. Admiral Carter reported from the communication station. They wanted their people to see humans die, but they also sent it directly to our rescue fleet. Captain Murphy and Captain Stevens watched the whole thing. President Davis stood up slowly. She walked to the window and looked out at the gardens surrounding the Capitol building. Children were playing on the grass while their parents watched from benches. A normal, peaceful day on Earth. Admiral Foster, I'm authorizing Protocol Omega. Foster's scarred face broke into a cold smile. All restrictions lifted? All restrictions lifted. No rules of engagement. No protection for enemy civilians. Number. Mercy. Davis turned back to face them. The hegemony wants to see what humans do when we're threatened. Show them. Within 6 hours, every human military base in the solar system was buzzing with activity. Ships that had been in storage for decades were being pulled out and refitted with experimental weapons. Civilian shipyards began converting cargo haulers into missile platforms. Admiral Carter received command of Battle Group Vengeance. Her flagship was the massive dreadnought UES Retribution, armed with weapons that violated every galactic warfare treaty humans had never signed. 500 ships followed her into hyperspace. Fleet Admiral Foster took personal command of Battle Group Fury. His ships carried experimental antimatter warheads and gravity bombs. Another 800 vessels that pushed the boundaries of human engineering. But the real work was happening in the shadows. Commander Neil Jackson sat in a bunker beneath London, surrounded by computers and alien technology captured from the rescue mission. He was humanity's best intelligence officer, and he had been studying hegemony communications for 3 straight days. What do we know about their civilian population? Admiral Carter asked during a secure briefing. Jackson pulled up holographic displays showing hegemony worlds. 3 home systems, each with billions of citizens. They make no distinction between military and civilian targets in their own operations. Their children are raised watching genocide footage as entertainment. Are you recommending we target their civilians? Carter asked. I'm giving you options, Admiral. The hegemony has families, schools, hospitals, and art galleries, just like we do. The difference is that they choose to celebrate mass murder as a cultural activity. Carter studied the intelligence reports. Hegemony society was built around the worship of conquest. Their children played games that simulated genocide. Their entertainment industry was devoted to recording and broadcasting the destruction of peaceful species. What about their military capabilities? Overconfident and unprepared for serious resistance. They've been fighting pacifists for so long that they've forgotten how to handle real opposition. Jackson highlighted weak points in their formation. Patterns. Look at this. They grouped their ships for maximum psychological impact, not tactical advantage. Meanwhile, the surviving rescue fleet conducted guerrilla operations throughout hegemony space. Captain Murphy had taken command after Hayes' death, and his psychological warfare broadcasts were having unexpected effects. Attention hegemony forces. Murphy's voice echoed across their communication networks. You wanted to see how humans fight. Watch and learn. The human ships struck fast and disappeared faster. They hit supply convoys, communication relays, and isolated patrol ships. But they didn't just destroy targets. They left messages. After hitting a hegemony supply depot, Murphy's crew left a recording of Hayes' final interrogation playing on loop. Hegemony soldiers who found the wreckage heard a human calmly explaining exactly what his species did to those who threatened children and innocents. The effect on hegemony morale was devastating. These aliens had never encountered an enemy that fought back intelligently. They were used to overwhelming force against helpless victims. Guerrilla warfare was outside their experience. Back on Earth, Dr. Peterson was working with the rescued Zephyrians to understand their new allies. Linthara had been studying human behavior and was becoming increasingly worried. Your people are frightening, she told Peterson during one of their meetings. We're not the ones committing genocide. Peterson replied, No, but you're planning something terrible. I can see it in how you organize. The hegemony kills for pleasure. You kill for purpose. That might be worse. Peterson considered her words. Maybe, but we didn't start this war. What will you do when it's over? Will you stop at defeating the hegemony, or will you eliminate them completely? Peterson had been wondering the same thing. Human military doctrine was clear about threats to Earth. Complete elimination was not just an option. It was often the preferred solution. I don't know, he admitted. 3 months after Hayes' death, the full might of human military power was ready. Battle Group Vengeance and Battle Group Fury had joined the guerrilla fleet in hegemony space. Nearly 2,000 ships carrying weapons. That pushed the limits of physics. Warcast Commander Vextar was beginning to understand his mistake. The humans weren't behaving like any species he had encountered before. They should have been intimidated by his execution of their captain. Instead, they seemed to have become more dangerous. Status report, he demanded from his flagship. We've lost 47 ships to human raids in the past month, his aide reported. Our supply lines are constantly under attack. Our communication networks are compromised. How many ships do they have? Unknown. They appear and disappear without warning. Our sensors detect different vessels each time. Vextar studied the tactical displays. The human attacks weren't random. They were systematically dismantling the infrastructure needed to support genocide operations. Food processors, fuel refineries, communication arrays, weapon factories. All targeted with surgical precision. What about our intelligence on Earth? Limited. But our long-range scouts report massive fleet movements. It appears they're mobilizing their entire military. For the first time since the war began, Vextar felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. The hegemony triumvirate called an emergency session. Representatives from all 3 species gathered on the fortress world of Kethmore to discuss the human problem. These creatures are unlike anything we have encountered, reported Sciencecast leader Ziktar of the Korth. Their technology is primitive, but they use it in ways we didn't expect. They're affecting morale across our territory, added entertainment cast leader Nalthur of the Xanth. Our people are beginning to question whether genocide is entertainment when the prey fights back effectively. Warcast Commander Vextar stood before the assembly. I recommend we open negotiations with Earth. Offer them a treaty. We will avoid their territory if they stop interfering with our operations. The suggestion caused chaos in the chamber. The hegemony had never negotiated with inferior species before. You want us to treat these primitives as equals? Demanded another Warcast leader. I want us to survive, Vextar replied. I executed one of their captains, thinking it would demoralize them. Instead, it seems to have unleashed something we don't understand. The debate continued for hours. Finally, they decided to send a message to the approaching human fleet, offering peace talks. Fleet Admiral Foster received the transmission while his ships prepared for the final assault on hegemony space. The message was simple: stop the attacks and negotiate a peace treaty that would keep humans and the hegemony in separate parts of the galaxy. Foster's response was equally simple: no. Sir? Asked his aide. They're offering to leave Earth alone. Foster looked at the tactical display, showing thousands of human ships preparing for battle. Lieutenant, do you know what the hegemony's mistake was? Threatening Earth, sir? No. They killed Captain Hayes on camera and broadcast it to the galaxy. Foster's scarred face was stone. They wanted to show everyone what happens when you oppose them. Now we're going to show everyone what happens when you oppose us. The final battle for hegemony space was about to begin. Warcast Commander Vextar finally understood why no species had ever successfully conquered a death world. It wasn't just that death world creatures were tough. It was that they were smart enough to turn their violence into an art form, and disciplined enough to direct it with surgical precision at their enemies. The hegemony was about to learn the difference between cruelty and warfare. 6 months after Captain Hayes died, the largest fleet in human history dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of hegemony territory. 2,000 ships carrying weapons that would have been considered war crimes if humans had bothered to sign. Galactic warfare treaties. Fleet Admiral Foster stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Nemesis, watching as his enemy's homeworld grew larger on the main screen. The planet Kethmer was beautiful, with golden cities that sparkled in the light of twin suns. It would have been peaceful if not for the massive orbital defense platforms bristling with weapons. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Foster, he announced over the general cone. Today we end the hegemony. Remember what they did to Captain Hayes. Remember what they planned for Earth. Show them what happens when Deathworlders deliver justice. Warcast Commander Vexstar watched the human fleet approach from his command center on Kethmer. He had pulled every available ship back to defend the hegemony home systems. Nearly 3,000 vessels formed defensive lines around the planet. They're outnumbered, his aide observed. Our ships are also individually more powerful. Vexstar wasn't so confident anymore. The past 6 months had taught him to fear human ingenuity. Begin the attack. All weapons, maximum power. The battle that followed lasted 18 hours and changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The hegemony opened with overwhelming firepower, just as they always did. Plasma cannons and particle beams lit up space like a deadly aurora. Any other species would have been vaporized in the first few minutes, but humans had been preparing for this battle their entire lives. Every war movie, every video game, every military exercise had led to this moment. They fought like their ships were extensions of their bodies. Captain Murphy, now commanding the heavy cruiser U.S. Vengeance, led a squadron of converted cargo ships against the enemy's left flank. The civilian vessels looked helpless compared to sleek hegemony warships, but appearances were deceiving. "Surprise," Murphy said as his convoy opened their cargo bays. Instead of shipping containers, the holds were packed with missile launchers. Thousands of guided projectiles streaked toward enemy ships, while the converted freighters scattered like wolves. The hegemony had never seen anything like it. They expected honor combat between warships, not swarms of tiny craft attacking from every direction. Admiral Carter led the main assault with her dreadnought U.S. Retribution. The massive ship was a flying fortress armed with experimental railguns that fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Target their command ship. Carter ordered. The Retribution's main guns spoke. Solid metal projectiles punched through hegemony shields and armor like they were made of paper. Warcast Commander Vexstar watched in horror as his flagship's sister ship simply disintegrated. How are their primitive weapons so effective? He demanded. His science officer was studying the sensor readings. They're using kinetic energy weapons, but at velocities we thought impossible. The projectiles have more energy than our plasma cannons. And they're not just shooting randomly, his tactical officer added. Look at their targeting patterns. They're systematically destroying our command and control systems. Human ships darted between the massive hegemony vessels like deadly insects. They used their smaller size and superior maneuverability to attack weak points. Engine exhaust ports, sensor arrays, shield generators. Every shot was precisely aimed, but the humans were taking losses too. Captain Stevens and her crew died when the U.S. Thunderbolt sacrificed itself to take out a hegemony dreadnought. Dozens of other ships were lost in the opening hours. The difference was that humans didn't retreat when they took casualties. They got angrier. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface," reported Communications Officer Dave Park. Main screen showed a familiar reptilian face. Warcast Commander Vexstar looked older than he had 6 months ago. tired and frightened. "Admiral Foster, I request immediate ceasefire negotiations." Foster didn't even look up from his tactical display. "Denied. We're prepared to offer significant concessions, territory, resources, technology transfers." "Not interested. What do you want?" Vextar's voice cracked with desperation. Foster finally looked at the screen. His scarred face was expressionless. Unconditional surrender. War crime. Trials for every leader involved in genocide operations. Full reparations to all survivor species. Complete disarmament of your military. That would mean the end of the hegemony as a political entity. Yes, it would. The transmission cut out. The battle continued. By the 12th hour, the hegemony. Defense was collapsing. Human ships had broken through their outer perimeter and were engaging targets in low orbit. Vextar made a final desperate decision. "Activate the planetary defense grid," he ordered. "Target the human ships and our own damaged vessels. If we're going down, we take them with us." The orbital platforms turned their weapons on both fleets. It was the act of a leader who had lost all strategic sense. Captain Murphy saw what was happening and made his own desperate choice. "All ships, this is vengeance. I'm taking my squadron on a ramming run against the defense platforms. Clear me a path." "Negative, Murphy," Admiral Carter's voice crackled over the comm. "You'll never survive that run." "Maybe not, but Hayes died getting us intelligence on these bastards. I'm not letting his sacrifice be wasted." The U.E.S. Vengeance and 6 escort ships dove toward the planet's surface at maximum velocity. Hegemony fighters tried to intercept them, but human escort ships cleared the way with suicidal determination. Murphy's ship slammed into the primary defense platform at 20% of light speed. The explosion was visible from the other side. Of the planet, the remaining defense platforms went dark. The orbital battle was over. Warcast Commander Vextar stood in his command bunker as human soldiers breached the blast doors. He had expected them to kill him immediately. Instead, they took him prisoner. Why? He asked Captain Jake Murphy's replacement, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Kim. "Why keep me alive?" "Because dead men can't stand trial," Kim replied. "The galaxy is going to see what justice looks like when Deathworlders deliver it." The trials lasted 2 years. Every species that had survived hegemony genocide operations sent representatives. The evidence was overwhelming. Recorded broadcasts of mass executions. Plans for breeding farms on conquered worlds. Art galleries decorated with the bones of extinct species. Vextar was the last to testify. Broken and defeated, he tried to explain his people's actions. "We believed that strength gave us the right to rule. We thought mercy was weakness." Dr. Peterson, now serving as a prosecutor, asked the final question. "Do you understand now why? You lost?" Vextar nodded slowly. "You turned mercy into strength. You made protecting the weak into the deadliest weapon in the galaxy. The sentences were harsh, but fair. War criminals faced execution or life imprisonment. The hegemony's 3 species were placed under human supervision until they could prove they had abandoned their genocidal culture. But the real change was bigger than punishment. Admiral Carter became the first commander of the Galactic Defense Fleet. Human ships now patrolled the territories of dozens of peaceful species. The galaxy had learned that there was someone willing to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Dr. Peterson established the Interspecies Cooperation Institute on Earth. Linthara served as its first alien director. Together, they created protocols for protecting pacifist civilizations and integrating them into a growing alliance. 5 years after the war ended, Captain Murphy stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery, now serving as humanity's flagship for diplomatic missions. He was older, with gray in his hair and scars on his hands. But his eyes were clear and determined. "Sir, we're receiving a distress call," reported his communications officer. "From who?" "Unknown species. They're calling themselves the Karani. They say something called the Shadow Fleet is attacking their worlds." Murphy smiled grimly. It seemed. There was always another predator species that needed to learn the same lesson. Set course for the Karani system. Maximum speed. "Yes, sir." "Should we contact Earth for reinforcements?" "Not yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first." Murphy settled into his command chair. "But send a message to Admiral Carter. Tell her we might have another situation." As the Discovery jumped into hyperspace, Murphy thought about Captain Hayes and all the others who had died to establish humanity's role in galactic politics. They had paid the price to ensure that genocide would never again go unanswered. The Shadow Fleet was about to learn what Hayes had tried to tell Vextar. Humans didn't forgive those who threatened the innocent, and they had very long memories. Earth's new motto was inscribed on every ship in the fleet: never again. Two simple words that struck fear into the hearts of predators across the galaxy. Deathworlders had found their purpose among the stars. They were the guardians now, the ones who answered when peaceful species cried for help. And any alien civilization considering expansion through genocide had to ask themselves one simple question: was their conquest worth facing the wrath of Earth? Most decided it wasn't worth the risk. For those who chose wrong, humanity's response was swift and final. The galaxy had learned that there were worse things than predators, that there were predators with a conscience, and the will to use their strength in service of justice.